Hey guys, coming to you from Portland, Maine. Beautiful place. Behind me, let me get out of the way so you can actually see it, is a beautiful pre-Civil War castle. And on the four corners, you can see the towers as they up. This used to be a prison. I kind of know a guy who did some time here. You're looking at him. So, this originally was the original building. Of course, as time goes by, there becomes more bad guys, or maybe there's more laws. I'm not sure which one. And then, of course, they had to expand it. And as I swing around, you'll see the different places as I'm going to show you. There's a lot of the buildings aren't here anymore, but this here, and forgive the noise, by the way, in the background, because at the end of the field is the Portland Airport. So it's a very loud facility sometimes. But what you see here is this building, and on the top of that building, right at the door, let me get my finger of it, right there, you'll see the number 1. And so that number was the cottage. So this was cottage 1, and then they have cottage 2, 3, and they had all these cottages. And they're not, by the way, in the order. So if you listen to me talking about cottage 5 and you're like, wait a second, that's only 3 away from 1, they had them scattered out in different ways. But this was the place that you went to, this cottage, when you first got here. And the first floor was the day room. The second floor was the chow hall. And then the very top, the third floor, was the dorms. And I can't remember the exact amount, but I want to say we had about 30 to 40 guys that would live in there. And I did a solid year in this one at 15 to 16. And then I did another year down on the other side of the property, which we can't see anymore. They've torn the building down, in cottage 7. And I did another year there. But now, as you walk around here, you'll see the other cottages. And so you got cottage 2s right there. You head on off over here, and you get into other cottages. This one actually is cottage 5, so we jumped to cottage 5. That was where, if you had a drug problem or an alcohol problem, that's where you'd go to that facility. And then way in the distance, it's kind of hard to see it, and even for me on the computer for you to see, but there's a brick building over there in the distance. And that brick building is called the Arthur Gould School. And that was the high school, and there's a facility in the back. And then, of course, we come back to the main campus. It's pretty amazing as a building. I'll kind of point a couple things out. It's a little hard to see, but the building itself, the top floor, the very top of that building up there is an actual gymnasium. So right where my finger's pointing, that used to be a full-blown gymnasium. And if you looked up, you can actually find pictures of it online here at the center. So this place, I'm going to talk a little bit about some struggles I went through. If I can figure out my fingers, there we go. So over here, you see the tower. That was the original cells. It's a spiral staircase in the middle, and then each window was a cell. And of course, over time, that facility was just called the main offices, and the towers were no longer used because everyone was put into the cottages. It was an all-male facility, but we had one female facility in the property, and then the school, that when you went to high school, you shared it with the girls. So it was an actual mixed facility for that place. But the towers were shut down. The windows were broken out. There was just a single steel rod that went down, and there was no windows. There was a man here named, I better not say his name, just because there's liability issues and things, but there was a cop. And this cop, or corrections officer, CO, whatever you want to call him, he ended up running the rec rooms, and it's on the back side of that building, actually, right there. I totally forgot to look at it, but there's a door over there, and there was a rec room, and that's had pool tables and ping pong and stuff like that. So once a week you got rec, and or a couple times a week so you go play. And the guy was he was bad news. He was a bad guy. And I'm not saying I wasn't a bad guy. I was. But I was very stand up when it came to the guards. I treated them with respect. They treated you with respect, and it was a mutual thing. This guy was abusive, and you heard rumors about how he beat people and all kinds of stuff. So one time, he got lippy to me, and of course I got lippy back. I mirror you. If you're a jerk, I'm going to be a jerk to you. This is how I used to be. And so this guy, he tells the rest of the inmates to head back, and except for me. And he took me up into that tower right there. The window that my finger's pointing on, he put me in there, Had to be stripped down to the boxers and socks and shirt. It was wintertime, so we're talking 15 degrees out. And he had a special fire hose that he ran up there, and then he sprayed me with the fire hose, which is like getting stabbed with 1,000 needles. But it was the winter, and I spent a lot of time up in that thing, and I'm lucky I didn't die. I think it was just sheer determination, sheer will. Funny note, this is now condos. So these buildings are now condos, which is comical. And the prison actually got moved, and you can kind of see right there. There's a blue roof in the distance, and that blue roof is the new prison. And it's not a good place, in my opinion. But that's for another story. This property took me as an inmate at 15 years of age, and it spit me out at 16. I went out and did some serious criminal activity running my empire, and I needed to get back in here, so I would have met head in the ring to come back for another year. And I did my 2 years, 15 to 17 right here. And this campus, which is beautiful, I mean, it is gorgeous. It was an open facility, meaning that you had to walk on these paths that are all throughout the facility. You couldn't walk on the grass, or they would think you're escaping, and so then you're in trouble. But I guess as I was thinking all week about this, I thought of Joseph, and I want to talk to you a minute about Joseph, because Joseph and me have a lot in common, and I never knew how much I had in common with him. Being the only boy in my family on my birth side, I was cherished by my dad. I was loved by my dad. My sisters used to always say, "You love him more than us because he's a guy." And again, Joseph was loved by his father more than his other brothers, so they thought. I don't think his dad actually loved him more. I think he was his favorite in the respect. And parents, as a parent, I don't try to pick a favorite, but I do see how a parent could be like, oh, I have more in common with that child than I do with that child. And so I think that's more of what it is. And that's just my own opinion. I know you guys might disagree, and that's fine. But Joseph then was thrown into a hole unjustly. They actually were going to kill him. The guy was going to get whacked by his brothers. So he's got these 11 other brothers, and his dad just wanted him to take out some food to him. He's like, hey, take this out to your brother. Take some stuff out to the boys. And they got ticked off. He had this beautiful colored coat, kind of like this shirt, right? Many colors. Might have had a beautiful fedora like the big guy right here, right? Okay, maybe not a fedora, but beautiful colors. And he gets out there, and they're going to whack him. And they don't know what to do, so they throw him in a hole that there was out there. There's a big old hole, and they chuck him down in there. Thank God one out of the 11 other brothers, had the sense to say, I'm not going to kill my brother. You guys are stupid. How about we sell him as a slave? Now, in his mind, that was the right thing to do. Get rid of the brother and save him. And you know what? He was right. So he sold him to a slave trader. So this guy goes and sells the slaves in Egypt. So he gets to Egypt, sells the slave, Joseph. Now Joseph's the slave. He climbs to the top of the slave pyramid, if you will. No pun intended for Egypt. And he gets to the top, and he is working for a guy named Potiphar. And he was a very powerful man in Egypt. Well, Joseph was a very powerful man too, because he worked as he ran the boss's whole place. And of course, his boss, Potiphar, had a beautiful wife, they say. And this woman, she really wanted to, Joseph and her to hook up. And Joseph's like, no, I'm a good man. This isn't right. Your husband has done very good to me. And I'm not going to betray that trust, and walked away. He did the right thing. She came back, and she went after him again and again and again. And then finally, after he turned her down, as he was, I don't want to use the word fleeing from the scene, but he was wanting to get away from her, she reaches up and grabs a piece of his shirt, cloak, whatever you want to call it, his clothing, and he took off. Well, they arrested him because she accused him of rape. And so he gets thrown into a prison. Now, I've done a lot of research on prisons in Egypt. That time period. You're talking like, you know, just shy of 4,000 years ago. So they were bad. What they did was they literally found usually like a cave system and opened up a hole in the top where they kind of put a block over it. And no BS, they would roll the blocks back, put you in there, and lower down slop for the day. And they might have had some light a little. And prisons weren't good. Now, there are a few places where his history talks about they were kind of like in the basement. But from what I've seen, they were just holes in the ground. Or old caves that were turned into a place to lock people in. And so here he is for, an astronomical amount of time that he's doing for a crime he never committed. Had he just slept with the wife of Potiphar, had he just slept with his boss's wife, right, he wouldn't have got arrested. He could have slept with her, done that, and then got out of there and told the boss he's retired and left, right? Again, he's a slave, but he found favor. Maybe his boss would free him and let him go. I'm just thinking as him. What are the options? Because that is an option. The other option is just to be a stand-up guy. And then the other option is to tell your boss. Well, that's never good. In that situation, that wouldn't come out good either. And so it's interesting because I look at him and he's in this prison. And a couple knuckleheads get thrown in prison with him. There's a bunch in there, but there's a couple. One's a cupbearer and one's another guy. I can't remember, the bread maker or something for the king, for the pharaoh. And while they're in there, they had a dream. And Joseph, of course, was a man who interpreted dreams. Him and God were connected in a way that he had a gift of interpreting dreams. And so he interpreted the dreams for the two knuckleheads that were in there. So the dreams were interpreted. They were, went on their way. The king got over them being, jerks to him, and he had his sentence done. And the guys get out of the prison. They go back to work for the pharaoh. And then what happens? The pharaoh has a dream, and he tells all of his wise counsel, hey, what's this mean? And nobody can tell him. And the cupbearer and the bread maker, the two cats that were down there, the knuckleheads, hey, pharaoh, we got this guy. This guy we know. His name's Joseph. He's in the hole. This guy can tell you what the dream is. So they go to the hole, they get Joseph, they bring him up, he tells Pharaoh what the dream is. I'm going to shorten the story as fast as I can, and I've been shortening it. But what happens is he becomes favored by Pharaoh. Now keep this in mind, he was favored by his father, his birth father. And then he goes out to his brothers, they hate him, so they throw him in a hole. Then they try to kill him, but then the one brother says, let's not kill him, let's sell him to a slave trader. Then he goes to another place where they take, and again, he's a slave. He's on the bottom. He climbs up faithfully. How many of you, if you were made a slave, would be faithful? How many of you right now listening to this would be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do my darndest today to be the best slave I can? Well, guess what? I would. Because this story shows you why you should be the best at whatever you're doing. Because you should always strive to be great at your projects, whether it be a job, school, family. Because here's the young man, he finds favor, and he rises to the top with his boss. And then the whole situation with the fake rape with the boss's wife, after that he's thrown into prison. What happens? Tell me. That's right, he gets favor again by the king, and he rises to the top. Not only does he rise to the top, y'all know I like rings, right? So in Egypt, the pharaoh would wear a ring. So he took his actual ring, the pharaoh's ring, and he placed it on Joseph's hand. And that ring, in the stead of Pharaoh, so when Pharaoh would leave, in his stead, that ring said that Joseph was Pharaoh. He said, you are second in command of the entire empire of Egypt. But here's the interesting thing. His family, there was a famine coming, and that's part of the dreams. And so he prepared Egypt for this famine. And when all the famine hit, Egypt was just fine. They had everything they needed. But the people that lived on the outskirts of the territory of Egypt, they weren't fine. And so what's funny is Joseph's brothers had to get sent to Egypt. And they come to Egypt to get favor and get food, grain for their father, Joseph's dad. Joseph has almost forgotten about his family, right? And they come before him, He sees his brothers, the guys that threw him in a hole, went to kill him, and sold him as a slave. And now they're telling them that we are here to get food for our father. And Joseph, of course, loves his father. Then he finds out that they had another son. But the father doesn't let him come because he would never allow his youngest again to be away from him. He wanted to protect him since he lost his brother Joseph. He asked his brothers, and they told some story about how a lion got to him or something. The short of this is, he sends his brothers back, sets them all up, puts some golden things in their packages so that when they were leaving, they could get arrested for thievery, and then forces the young boy to come back and all this stuff. And the moral of it is he ends up revealing who he is. And the dad's there, and he explains, I'm your son. I'm Joseph. The lion ate me. And I forgive all of you over there. You, the brothers. Could you imagine those guys, what they were thinking at that time? What that would be like? But I think of Joseph. He found favor in every situation he was in. And I look, and I'm in this right now, in a place that's free to walk through. There was a prison. And every night, as I would go to sleep up here in Cottage 1, and the half a dozen times that I got tortured in that chamber, I'd think of Joseph. Because if Joseph could endure, so could I. And you just endure. And you make it. And over there was another hard unit called STU, S-T-U, the STU unit. I can't remember the abbreviation, but I think it was Special Treatment Unit. It's another word for the hole. So when you got in fights or anything like that, you went to STU, the hole. Same thing. That same guy would run that. And he'd come in there and beat you with a phone book. Now, the funny story is, I don't want to say faithful, but I was good at what I did at the time. What I did at the time was run an underground empire in the underground. And I loved what I did. I did it so good that people didn't know I did it. I was the pastor's kid, and I had access to everything I wanted in this world. And I got here, and something changed in me slowly. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because of being in prison. I don't know if it's because of messages that my father wrote me every single day, lessons that he taught me, that maybe seeds that were planted in my heart. And I'm thinking as I talk that that's probably what it is, that those letters were seeds. The messages were seeds. And if a seed is planted over time, as you see these beautiful trees, I mean, look at this one right here. This is gorgeous. This huge, beautiful tree. And as you look around this place, and you look at the trees, they're gorgeous. They all started with a seed. And just like this building right here, I sat there at 15 years of age, and right there in that building. And at nighttime on the other side, I would look out the window right in the where my finger's at on the other side. And I'd stare and dream off of what was going to come in the world and what was going to happen. And so as I do that, I think of those lessons. And I do think about how those lessons were what actually planted the seeds that possibly changed me as a person. And so I'm hoping that these messages that you receive from me, I hope that you'll find some sort of a seed planted in your life. And that maybe a few years down the road, because it wasn't too long after this, that I ended up walking away from a very large statewide operation. And I don't go into too many details because there's certain things I just can't discuss on social media and the airways. But I walked away from all of it. Why? There's many reasons, but I believe the seeds were planted in my youth. But then I remember those letters, and I think, wow, those letters were very important. So you might not think you're doing something big. I support a lot of guys inside of the prisons. I write to them. My partner, Cece, writes to them. We correspond with them. We plant seeds into their life, and then we watch them get out, and then we help transition them from a nasty place into a beautiful place. We try to take them from that. You look at a caterpillar, and then it turns into that cocoon, and then it opens up, and there's a beautiful butterfly. Now, if you don't care about the inmate, you don't care about the convict, then all that convict's going to do is come right back out and go right back to it. And by you not caring, maybe it's your house that he robs next time. Maybe it's your child he kills next time. Maybe it's you that he kills next time. And I know that you might be like, well, that's not my fault. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying, what could you have done to stop it? What can we do to stop these people in this world that are doing evil acts? Let's plant seeds of hope. Let's plant seeds of love. Sometimes a hardened criminal just needs to hear somebody say, I love you. I'll be honest with you. You know, my partner will tell you this. I tell everybody I love them. And I mean it. I love you. Doesn't mean I like you. There are people that I cannot stand. I mean, they repulse me. But I do love them. And when you hear the words, I love you, and you're a convict and you're a tough guy, well, let me tell you something. That kind of does something to you. It melts your heart. There's that movie, Frost, where Santa Claus and Frost are feuding. Tim Allen's Santa, and I can't remember the guy that played Frost, but at the very end, when Frost was in control of everything, the little girl goes up and she hugs Frost, and he melts. And he's like, oh, what is that? What do I feel? And she's like, love. Now, it's funny, right? But it's true. And there was a woman in my life named Mama Kelly, my adopted mom. And she was like that little girl. When I got out of here for the second time, she hugged me. And I could feel like that character. Years later when they did that movie, that's what I felt like, that emotion. What is that? I have a heart? Because I had to learn up here to flick off my heart so that I could do what I had to do back then. Because you couldn't do what I did with the heart. And I had that stone cold persona. And she hugged me. And she said, I love you. So I want you to go out and try to love more people. You see, it's tattooed on me. These aren't things that I just say to you, by the way. This isn't like an idea. Hey, this sounds good. It's really cool, right? No, it's hashtag live positive. But below that, it's love all. Love all. Stop pitching your religious crap. Stop talking about your dogma. Do me a favor. Take your theology and throw it out the window, because I don't care about it. And neither does God. Your theology is the study of God. That's what the word means. Theology is study of the deity, of God. So when someone says to me that their theology says this, take your theology and throw it out. How about you stop worrying about studying God and just be God? And I don't mean that like be God himself. I know a bunch of you be like, oh my God, you just committed heresy. No, God is in you. God is in me. The Christ said, you will go on to do greater things than I. Okay, well, if you believe it, then start believing it and start doing it. Stop putting all these boundaries up where we're trying to stick us. And I get that my father has many rooms in his house, right? And that's true. And so there's a room for the Pentecostal. There's a room for the evangelical. Well, guess what? There's a room for the Muslim. There's a room for the Jew. There's a room for all the other faiths. So we have people, I love my Christian faith, but I have people in the Christian faith who are like, unless you were born again, you're going to hell. That's interesting because the Jews aren't born again, and those are God's chosen people. So how does that work in your theology? And I know you're going to want to debate me and send in remarks and stuff, and save yourself, because I don't want to have to slap you. But you're wrong. We all have created a faith. The Jews, the Christians. Christ never said, pray in Jesus' name. Nope. Show me one place where Jesus said, I want you to pray Jesus. He didn't. He said, you pray, our Father, who art in heaven. Our Father. The Jew, the Gentile, the Muslim, the Buddhist. All of them. Our Father. We're all serving the same God. But we're creating our own doctrine and our own religions. And man who rewrites the Bible and who rewrites the Quran and who rewrites and all these different things that have been written, they were all written by man. And even if you have the original one, if you could show me the original transcript penned from the hand of the man who wrote the 66 books in the Bible, which there's 66 books that create the whole Bible, if you could show me the facts that they were real, I still am going to tell you this. They're written by man. And I'm a man. And I'm flawed. I make mistakes. I can admit that. Can you? No, I'm standing on this book. Okay, good. Then go out there and chop your left hand off if you're left-handed, because that's a sin in the Bible. And women, all you watching, you can't go to the church at all when you're on your period. The Bible says so. You're sinning. And then you're going to tell me, oh, no, wait a second. That's the Old Testament. Okay, because the Old Testament also talked about homosexuality being bad, so throw that out. Nope. Oh, Paul said homosexuality is bad too. Really? Paul made one comment about it, and I think it's because Paul was gay. And let me tell you why. He said, I hate myself because I do the things I don't want to do. But I do the things I don't want to do. I don't do the things I want to do. I really believe Paul was struggling with his own sexuality. And that's just a personal belief. There's no documents to prove any of that. Okay, folks? So save your comments for that also. But I'm not speaking to the grandma and the grandpa who's stuck in your little rut. That's not who I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to the young man and the young woman out there who are confused about all this stuff called religion. And here's what I want to do. I want to take that religion and say it's beautiful, but chop it down and get to what the core of it is. And that's what's tattooed on me. Love all. That's it. That's what God said. They asked Jesus, hey, Christ, what do you want us to do? Well, there's a whole bunch of laws. You know, I'm Jew. There's all these laws. What do I do? He says, don't worry about all that. Two things. Love God with all your heart. Love man as yourself. And you guys have heard me do this and say this 1,000 times. And you're going to hear me say this another 1,000 times. I love myself. I've learned to love myself. I was a horrible man at this place. Okay? The name, the Irish Beast, that's tattooed here, that came from this facility. You understand? People, my name scared people. If I said I was coming, people left the state. Look at me now. I'm 46 years old. I'm not 15 anymore. I'm not running some massive underworld, dark, evil organization. I'm now going out there and trying to grab all those knuckleheads and pull them up and show them there's a great place called the earth, society, legal activities, love. And it's not easy. But you and me have all these rules that the church worlds, the Jewish synagogues, the mosques, we all keep fighting each other. We're all fighting. And I'm not. TCI, the Church of Inclusion, this organization that I founded, this organization is about love, love, love. We love you, and we want to teach you to love others. And that's all God wants from you. I have died 3 times, folks, and I have been to heaven 3 times. And all of my dear Christian friends and my Jewish friends and my Muslim friends, you are all so wrong on what's coming, just so you know. I'm sorry to tell you. And I don't read it from a book. This is firsthand information coming from the guy who's been to the other realm. And I say heaven sometimes because that's what we're taught on earth as growing up, right? And they say, well, what about the hell? Well, let me show you where the hell's at. Hold on. This is going to be a big reveal. It's the very end. I know we're about to wrap this, but I want to show you hell. Ready? You're living in it, knucklehead. You're in hell right now. And you can make hell beautiful, or you can make it even worse than it is. But you're in hell. Heaven's the next realm. And when you get there, you're going to see people like my dear friend, Glenn, who took a 12 gauge, put it to his head, and blew his head off. He's there. I saw him standing right next to a man who most of you probably know by the name of Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. One of my mentors was right there next to him. Huh, interesting. Dr. Peale and a young man who blew his head off. Gay friend. Wait a second. This doesn't add up. I'm confused. Well, there's a lot of confusion out there, and I just want to clear it with one word. Love. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to tell you things, and maybe 10 years from now, I'm going to go, man, what an idiot I was. I do it now. I look back 20 years ago. I look back, what? I'm 46, so what is that? 35? No, that's 25 years? 20? No, gosh, 30 years. That's 30 years ago. I look back 30 years, and my belief system at the time, what an idiot I was. I was an idiot. Now, you go tell me I was an idiot back then, or let me rephrase that. You go tell this guy that he was an idiot, good luck. See where they find the body. But now, I can admit that I do make mistakes and that I am an idiot, a knucklehead. That's what I love to call myself too. I'm a knucklehead. You're a knucklehead. We're just trying to get through this beautiful place called hell in a heavenly way and take as many people as we can and enlighten them. And that's what we at the Church of Inclusion are trying to do. TCI loves you guys. You guys know the drill. As we travel around the country, myself and my business partner, my partner in crime, Cece. Cece, do you have anything to say to everybody about the message we just talked about?
Everybody's broken in some way, whether it started with your parent in your own home or decisions you made as you were growing up. We're all a little bit broken, and we all have a gel if you look at it. But all those places and all those things that you experience as a child and grow up, they make you who you are now. And I couldn't be who I am, and Rev JB couldn't be who he is if we hadn't gone through those things and learned those experience and experience those seeds of growth. So
I like that. Experience the seeds of growth. So let's go out and let's try to take those seeds. And if you say, well, no one's put a seed in my life, you just watched one.
yes.
We just put a seed into your life. And if you keep seeing you'll continue to plant seeds in your life. I love you guys. God loves you. You know the drill.
Mwah.